Hello, welcome back. A time now for our culture section, and we start with the story of a bank robber turned comic book writer. A Frenchman originally from the Democratic Republic of Congo, he goes by the name of Berthe One. After 4 years in prison, he wrote and illustrated The Escape, a comic book about his time behind bars. Renaud Lefort reports.
They're talking about this guy, Berthe One. It's been 7 years since he's been back to La Courneuve. The Paris suburb was home before going to prison.
I felt like an embedded journalist. I was in jail. I saw a lot of things. Some were fun, others were kind of sad. But I love making stories about it all, to be able to explain to readers what prison is really like, that it's not what we see in the movies or on TV.
A budding journalist? Not really. But thanks to the encouragement of a prison guard, Berthe One began making drawings about life behind bars.
In prison, individual cells are a rarity. Most of the inmates live on top of each other. In jail, a fight can start at the drop of a hat. Sometimes, all it takes is a look.
Being incarcerated was such hell that Berthe One hatched a plan. The idea was to
escape.
Not that kind of jailbreak, but a great escape in his mind. The Escape is actually the title of this ex-convict's comic book, a work heavily influenced by hip-hop and graffiti. With a lot of humor, his drawings talk about his experiences. From his mother's lectures to dealing with ravenous inmates. Once he was released, Berthe One's story hit the bullseye. The press sang his praises, art galleries kept calling, and French readers kept asking for more. More than enough buzz for his publisher to want to keep their comic star under close watch.
We're at the beginning of something huge. He has a ton of potential, so we can't wait to see the pages of Volume 2.
After the success of his first book, Berthe One is now hard at work on the new adventures of his avatar from the hood. But his lips are sealed as to where he'll take us next.
Certainly looks like gripping stuff. Well, staying with books, I have with me on set Clément Massy. Hello, Clément. You're going to go through our book review with us.
Absolutely. And I brought several novels today by Portuguese writer José Luís Peixoto. Okay. And I chose to talk to you about him today because his latest novel, Livro, just came out here in France. It's not yet translated into English, but his 3 previous novels were translated into English, so you can easily get a chance to read his fiction and discover his beautiful novels.
Lovely. Well, what's the story about then, Clément?
Well, Livro tells the story of Portuguese immigrants to France between the 1950s till the 1970s during the years of the dictatorship in Portugal. In this novel, a young woman is sent to France by her family to flee the dictatorship, but also to prevent her from marrying her boyfriend. And when he finds out she's been sent out to France, he decides to leave as well. And the book tells their epic stories. They're young and are about to embark on a long, fastidious, and fascinating journey to France. And that's a country they know nothing about.
Now, is there a potential love story here? I sense there may be.
There is, and it's simply captivating and very moving. The 2 characters will spend years looking for each other, because they are in different cities in France, but they will never stop thinking about each other. It's a story that stays with you for a very long time once you finish reading it. Livro is already at the top of my list of this year's best novels.
Wow.
And you may not know, but Peixoto is a very popular writer in Portugal, but he's also what I would call a serious writer. Portugal's iconic writer and Nobel Prize winner José Saramago said upon first reading him that he had no doubts that Peixoto was the promise of a great writer, and I would agree with that.
And you would agree with that? Well, it'd be hard not to, no?
Definitely. I mean, if you take some of his other, each of his novels tells very singular stories. Piano Cemetery, for example, which came out about 2-3 years ago, and it's published by Bloomsbury in the UK. But it tells the tragic and true story of Francisco Lazaro, who was a Portuguese marathon runner who died of exhaustion during the 1912 Olympics. The story is told by 2 different voices. Francisco's voice, the marathon runner, mile after mile, he tells about the race and about his own story. And there's also a second voice that comes into the novel, and that's his father's, who died a long time ago, but who seems to know everything about each member of the family.
Well, what about the title of the book, Piano Cemetery? I mean, is there actually a piano cemetery in the book?
There is. Francisco Lazaro's family are carpenters who wished they were piano makers. In the back of their shop in Lisbon is the piano cemetery. Imagine a room filled with old and broken down pianos. They used the remaining parts to repair pianos in the city, and the place is obviously very mysterious. And the one thing you don't know about is that the shop is waiting for someone to bring it back to life.
Wow. Well, The Piano Cemetery is by José Luis Peixoto. Did I pronounce that right, Clément?
You did.
It's published by Bloomsbury in the UK, and it's available in paperback. So you've also brought with you, Clément, Philippe Dijan's new novel. Tell us about that.
Well, Philippe Dijan is becoming one of France's most fascinating writers. You may have read and heard about Unforgivable, which came out 2 years ago and was translated into English and published in the US by Simon & Schuster. It was also a film by French filmmaker André Téchiné, so you may have heard about it. Unforgivable tells the story of a writer who years ago lost his wife and one of his daughters in a car accident. He's now just turned 60 and has remarried, and his sadness and regrets seem to be far behind him. But his other daughter, who he cherishes and who's become an iconic young actress, has gone missing. And the mental fortress he's built himself to reconstruct his life after the death of his wife and daughter is put to the test. And once he steps back into the world, he's going to discover a universe where forgiveness may be impossible.
Well, it certainly looks fascinating. Is the novel O just as good?
I would say it's even better, in my view. Gian tells the story of a successful businesswoman, but everything's not so perfect in her life. She has a part-time lover who happens to be her best friend's husband.
Oh, tricky.
She has to pay rent for her mother, and she has a father who's in jail for mass murder. And she also has a son who's not so successful either, and one day she's raped in her home. The rape is going to be a turning point in the novel, and she is going to fight back in the most unexpected ways.
It certainly sounds like an incredibly dramatic novel, that's for sure. I want to read the book. In the Paris papers, the novel is described as feminist. Would you agree with that?
I'm tempted to say yes. Absolutely, actually, because Philippe Dijan delivers an amazing portrait of a free woman. She's described as such in her life, at work, through her desires, in the way she fights back, and that a male writer chooses such a theme to write the portrait of a free woman may be unsettling because of the rape scene, but I found the book fascinating, certainly cruel at times, but definitely free, and I recommend you read it. And I really hope that it will be soon translated into English, just like Unforgivable 2 or 3 years ago.
Well, I certainly hope so too. That way I'll be able to read it. Thank you very much,
You're
Clément
welcome.
Massey, who's just describing O by Philippe Dijan there. That wraps up our culture section for now. Do stay tuned, more news coming up in just a couple of minutes.